Andre Loren Benjamin was born May 27, 1975 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Andre was born to Sharon Benjamin and Lawrence Walker. Andre was the only child.
When he was a baby, he was unusual. He wasn't a crying baby. He was a hungry baby.
He was a little doll. He really was. And you can tell that it was something about that young boy.
The things that babies play with, he wouldn't play with. You just put him on the blanket, give him some newspaper, and he'll just take the paper and he'll just crumble it. He loved the sound.
After Andre was born, Sherry and I moved to the apartment.
Dre's parents never actually got married.
Andre's father, Lawrence, and I moved in together to try and really make the relationship work. We lived together for about 2 or 3 months.
Well, at that time, you know, I was just wild. We do stupid things when we young.
Those were not good times. The father is still into his dating scene.
I admit it. I mean, I was fooling around with another woman.
He politely brought one of his attractions to the apartment and says, okay, the only reason I'm with you is because of the baby. And that's when I said, okay, the writing on the wall, it's time for you to get out of here. I moved out and I didn't look back. I moved into an apartment and I didn't have any furniture. I had $450 and I only could buy a mattress set. So Andre and I ate, slept, and entertained on that one mattress.
Everything that Sharon had to endure during that period was a struggle.
We moved around a lot of times because I didn't have the rent money. And when you get these notices on the door, it says either you pay or you move.
I go to the apartment complex one day and knock on the door and hear this hollow sound.
He was always prepared. Dre, let's go. I'm ready, Mom.
They had settled down in an apartment complex across from Borden Home, which is like the epitome of projects here in Atlanta, Georgia.
The kids in the neighborhood, 9 times out of 10, they were on their way to being drug dealers or pimps or gangbangers.
You're looking out a window and people fighting and the fire engines, and you knew that there was something better for your child.
So it only made sense to bus Andre to the part of town where he could be exposed to something finer.
During the 80s, you know, the Atlanta public school system participated in this minority to majority program to integrate the schools, racially integrate the schools.
They take kids from one area and bus them to another, and I said, wow, the grass is greener over there.
Andre was bused to Sarah Smith Elementary School and Sutton Middle School in Buckhead, which is the white side of town.
We're riding into predominantly white neighborhoods, affluent white neighborhoods, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 homes.
He's seen middle-class people walk down the street with briefcases. He's seen Lamborghinis. He's seen Ferraris.
It was a very suburban storybook sort of setting, you know, a long way from where we grew up.
Gee, you know, there is grass on the ground at these houses, so it was like night and day.
I think it was a big culture shock for Andre.
Just like different types of people, we went to school with the real Ferris Bueller.
1, 2, 3.
Those kids wore polo and they did things differently.
They were skateboarding and wearing the skate or die stuff, so just hanging with different folks, it's gonna rub off on you.
When Dre was 13, he got into fashion. Andre wanted to buy, you know, all these name brand clothes, and I couldn't afford it.
So he'll take plain white shirts that he might dye himself, and he'll actually put his own logos on his shirt. His dress definitely changed. You started seeing more of the preppy look, the sweater behind your neck, colored pants, like green pants. When he came back to the neighborhood, people around him was like, what the hell you got on? Every girl crazy about his
Being in that sort of racially mixed environment, Andre got a lot of exposure to music that I think a lot of the kids in our neighborhoods didn't get.
No rock music or that pop synthesized music.
And he always be rocking with his headset to ZZ Top.
Anything from Madonna to Sting to Duran Duran.
I think he learned that there's a different side of the world. It opened the horizon of his knowledge, of his insight.
He always thought outside the box.
My grandma had a record player, and we'll play a record, we'll sing to it. If it doesn't sound good, Dre would say, well, nah, that ain't the way that sound. And he'll go to the back and he'll twist some wires around and take it apart. He'll just do stuff till it sounds right to him.
If he heard the sound of an instrument or a record, he wanted to see where that sound was coming from. No matter how much you told him no, he was always one to see what's behind that door.
Andre began to rebel as he was transitioning from middle to high school.
He adopted the slogan that rules can be broken.
He began to get wild.
He just would do thuggish things. You know, those things that you got bust out of the neighborhood so you didn't do.
Kicking over mailboxes, pulling some kind of little caper over on a teacher, or just being wild, man.
His grades started slipping in school. He started coming home with new clothes, and mom knows she didn't buy them. They used to go laundromat and steal clothes.
He needed to be straightened out.
Mom was strict. You know, she was cool, but she was strict, too. She ain't play no games.
If you don't do what Sharon says, then you get yourself in some trouble.
He wanted to hang out on the corner in the neighborhood with the guys, which I'm like, oh, no.
I could just see it got on his nerves, you know, how stern she was. He was like, man, I got to get out.
He felt like, I don't have to answer to you. I'm a teenager now, so I'm going to do what I want to do.
He had gotten to a point where he wasn't afraid of Sharon's trouble. It was time for a man to speak.
Andre went to live with his father when he was 16.
Lawrence took Dre in because I think finally he said, okay, this is the time for me to really be a father now.
He needed some male balance. He really did, because he was up on his mom. He needs some direction.
Sharon was very apprehensive. She didn't want him to go. That was her baby.
I was scared to let Andre go. I thought that it was going to be a high risk because I didn't know if Lawrence was ready to raise Andre, but it was time for him to know his father.
Next, Andre continues to call the shots.
He's hanging out late at night, going to clubs, and I'm like, what is going on?
Andre's rebelling probably had a lot to do with the music.
Then he meets his match.
Andre and Antoine, they were rival MCs battling each other.
They really didn't like each other when they first met.
It's about his music.
He decided, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a rapper.
Dre be up nice writing.
And if there's no paper to write down a lyric, he would write it on the wall, on toilet tissue, or whatever he had to write it on.
Andre was eating, sleeping, and just living rap.
He went to Tri-Cities in East Point.
Tri-Cities High School is a school of the performing arts.
That's when he met Antoine Patton.